Last week I ranked all of the frigates in Starsector, and there's been some disagreements, and to be honest, all rankings are personal, so that is what I expect from you, and I expect you to tell me what you think about this ranking and what you would rank if you were ranking destroyers, because destroyers is where we're going for today. Now I'm going to be ranking these destroyers based on how good they are in your fleet, how good it is for AI to fly them, or how good it is for you to fly them, how good it is to have them on your side, or how good it is or how bad it is to face them in combat on the opposite side. And this time around I'm also going to be ranking utility ships a bit different, but more about that later. So let's start with utility. First we have a Buffalo, which is a destroyer sized freighter. It's got a decent amount of cargo it can carry for early and medium game. It's not gonna last you into late game because at that point you can get better stuff, but early and medium, yeah, it's gonna be useful. Of course, it's civilian grade, and if you put it into combat, it's just gonna die, but it's got 8 burns, so it's not gonna slow you down. So for that, it's actually very useful. And we have 5 variants, of course. We have just the standard one, we have the Luddic Church recolor, and then we have the Tritech recolor. Now then we have Hegemony 1. Hegemony 1 is actually slightly better because it already has built-in militarized subsystems, so you don't need to add that if you're adding that for that extra burn. And then we have the pirate version as well, which got shielded cargo hold, so that one would be more useful for smuggling. Now, as I said, utility we're going to be ranking a bit different, so let's ignore how easily it would die in combat, but let's think about how long would you actually use it. As I said, early to mid game, after that, not that much, so I don't think we can put it higher than C, but for smuggling, let's put the pirates up first, let's put the Hegemony 1 on the second, and then the 3 ones can be just below that. And then we have Buffalo Mark II, which is still a civilian grade ship, but pirates smacked a load of guns on it, and it's still shit. Actually, it's much worse now because the carry capacity is much lower, and if you see this in combat on the opposite side, you're gonna be like, hell yeah, that thing is gonna explode in about a second. On your side, never use this ship. This is a clear F tier. Then we have our first carriers, starting up with Condor. So Condor is a light carrier with 2 base. So early on, it's actually very useful because fighters can be really powerful in Starsector, and a lot of people actually ignore that. So having a Condor, which is very easy to get and very cheap to get, it's only 10 deployment points, but it can carry 2 wings, like really useful. It's also got a medium missile, so that's very good for early game. It's also solid for mid game. It's not gonna survive you into late game though, because it's way too squishy. So if any of the bigger ships even look at it, it's gonna die. So we're gonna put this one up here into B tier. And then we have a Drover, which is a midline version of a Condor, still cheap, still easy to get, slightly more deployment points at 12, does have 2 base as well, and instead of a medium missile, it's got like 4 smaller. So it really depends what exactly do you want out of your small carrier early on, but it kind of has the same thing as Condor. Like, it's gonna be very solid for you early to mid, and then late game is just not gonna be strong enough as well. Although if you can have a nice slap of ships, like a wall in front of this, and putting let's say 2 behind, it can still help. But if any smaller ships get around your wall and get to it, it's probably gonna die soon. So we're gonna put it out here in B tier. It's really up to you. Which one do you prefer? I feel like I get more mileage out of a Condor early on, and then later game I don't use both of them, so we're gonna do it like this. And then we have a couple of versions of a Enforcer. The basic one, the Pirate recolor, and then we have the 14 battle group, which is slightly stronger. It's got a bit more armor, but then it's slower. And it really depends what you want out of your Enforcer. If you want it to be more of a meat shield, or if you want it to be a bit faster and try to circle around bigger ships. In any case, what you get out of this, it's very easy to see. You got 4 small missile hardpoints up front. So if you put some Reapers or Hammers up front, you can do a lot of damage really fast. And then you have 5 medium ballistics, which, to be honest, if you slap on some chain guns on it and safety overrides, in players' hands, it can be really good ship, especially early on and maybe into mid game as well. But then some other bigger ships like cruisers and such will outclass it in that regard. And if you put it into AI's hands, it gotta be a bit more passive. It's gotta have a bit more longer range stuff, and it could be pretty scary with SO, so it can easily kill itself. So all in all, it is a strong ship, and wink wink, you're gonna get to see it very soon in my new Starsector series that starts on Monday. In any case, I feel like it's a solid mid ship, like basically in the middle of this. You're gonna have a lot of use out of it early on, but then later on you're probably gonna replace it and not see it again. So we're just gonna put them out here in the middle somewhere. It really is up to you which one do you prefer, but they can all be up here in B tier. Then next we have a Gemini. Gemini is kind of a meh at everything, right? It's only 9 deployment points, so it's not very expensive. It is a combat freighter, so early on you might want to grab it just for extra cargo capacity, but that's kind of basically it. It's got 1 medium missile, it's got 1 launch bay only, so it's somewhere in between everything, right? It's not really a carrier like these two are, and it's not a freighter like these ones are. It's really kind of in the middle, so it's supposed to work like a PD support maybe with the missile and maybe have like a defensive wing on it, but really it just kind of feels like jack of all trades and master of none. And well, let's just be real, the jack part isn't that good, so it's not gonna survive you even probably into mid game, early game just for cargo, and then late game doesn't exist anymore. We're gonna put it down here into low C because still it has some combat capabilities unlike the Buffalo, so it's there. And then we've got a Hammerhead. I don't think that there's any thinking really needed over here. I think everybody that plays Starsector knows that Hammerhead absolutely slaps. With SO, some chain guns, this is a cruiser killer in players' hands, easily. And then even for AI, if you build it a bit safer, maybe a bit longer range, it also slaps really hard. It's got accelerated ammo feeder, it's got some missiles up front. Yeah, it's just really good. We do have the Lion's Guard version as well, which kind of has more focus and energy, which doesn't make it as good in players' hands in my opinion. Still solid for AI, but not as good as for players. So just the basic Hammerhead, it can be like one of the very rare destroyers that you're gonna keep in your fleet. You're probably gonna keep more frigates in your fleet for late game or very late game than destroyers, but this can be one that stays with you for a long time, even if it's just one of those that when you are fighting a smaller fleet, you personally jump into it instead of flying your big battle cruiser or something, and you go and smack some stuff. So yeah, Hammerhead 100% deserves to be in the S tier. A Lion's Guard version we're gonna put into A, is just not as good, still solid though. Then we got a Harbinger, our first phase ship on this destroyer list, and it's kind of expensive to deploy, just the same as Afflictor was for frigates. It's 18 deployment points actually, and I feel like in the long term you would actually get more out of an Afflictor because it's just easier to deploy. But otherwise, if you like phase, it would be really solid in players' hands because it's got a system that allows you to turn off some systems on the opposing ship for a second, like turn off its shields or something, and then just alpha strike it. It's as it is for phase ships, alpha strike potential really high, but I personally really do not like flying phase ships, and in AI hands it's solid, but probably more worth to have an Afflictor, as I said. That being said, still very strong if you're a capable player. I think maybe we put it into like a low A tier, but really just maybe just if you have one in your fleet, unless you're focusing really on phase, maybe high B, but let's just put it into low A. And then we have a couple of Manticores. These are slightly more expensive to deploy than some of these other destroyers, like Enforcers and Hammerhead. At 12, the Logic Path one is actually 14 DP, and then we have the Pirate Recolor, which is basically just a recolor. Now, this is a very specific ship that I feel like it fits a very specific play style. I don't think the opposing AI would ever really use it that well. So in opposing teams, it's probably a very easy ship to encounter and kill. But in your hands, it can be very solid. I don't think it's that fun to fly as a player. Maybe if you go as on the Logic Path one, but I don't think Logic Path one works that well. So basically, the normal one and the pirate one has got one large ballistic for a destroyer that's kind of pretty big, and 2 medium missiles. It's also got a ballistic rangefinder, and with that, it can be a really solid ship of the line. So if you're playing in a way that your fleet is constructed in a way that you have a line, then it can actually be a really good fire support even into the late game, because it's got that one large and then 2 missiles. Yeah, it can be very cheap, easy to use ship of the line, but it really has to be used properly. I think the Logic Path one, it's more expensive to deploy. It's got one large missile and then 2 medium ballistics. It doesn't work that well. Even you don't really want to go SO with it, maybe. I feel like it's not as good, but really, if you find a proper fleet to use this one, it can be easily up here in the A tier. And I feel like the Logic Path one, we're gonna put it like into B. I feel like maybe that's gonna be the way to go. And then we go into high tech, where we got a Medusa. Medusa is also one of those rare destroyers that can actually survive into the late game. It's very solid in players' hands because it's like a destroyer wolf. It's got the phase skimmer, so you can jump around and escape from missiles and shots and everything else. So yeah, it really can work like a strike and move type of vessel. Early on, you'll be killing things with it easily. It can also be solid in AI's hands, and then as I said, it can survive into late game. Just put it somewhere on the sides where it can fight smaller frigates and easily kill those smaller frigates. So even though it's slightly costlier to deploy, it's 12 DP versus the Hammerhead's 10, I feel like this can be one of the rare destroyers that can go up here in the S tier. Then we got mules. This is an early game staple that you're gonna see in every fleet, probably even in your fleet, but pirates are gonna have it everywhere. So basically, mule is another combat freighter, but this one actually kind of works. It's very cheap to deploy for 7 deployment points. It's got decent amount of cargo it can carry, and the pirate one actually has shielded cargo holds if you want to be smuggling something. On like its medium mount, you can actually put it like an HVD or something like that on it. So it's got like 1,000 range, and then just pop some shields from very far. It can be a support ship like that for a very cheap amount. Maybe can survive even into late game, but most likely not, because you'll have better alternatives at that point. But it could be like a really special occurrence, I don't know. In any case, you personally are probably not going to be flying this. You will probably put this into AI's hands, and it can survive for quite a while, especially early on. But then later on, it's probably better if you go for something else. Just because of shielded cargo holds, let's put this one up front, and then the normal one behind it. But it's straight up a B tier ship. Then we have a Nebula, which is a civilian transport ship for personnel. Let's just be real, this is a utility ship, but there are better options out there, even amongst the destroyers. So I feel like this one can be down here in F tier. Then we got a Phaeton, which is a tanker. Now, you're probably gonna get a decent mileage out of it because it's got 8 burn levels, so it will be able to carry quite a lot of fuel for you. Probably even into the late game before you change into like a Prometheus and get some oxen to carry that one around with you. But until then, it's probably gonna survive you for long. It's nothing special of a ship though, so it's a utility one that you're gonna keep around with you for a while, but it's not one that you're gonna be like, oh yes, I need this right now. It's one of those that you can probably just grab a couple of demodded ones, not care about it too much, forget about it, but I still feel like it's gonna get more use. You're gonna get more use out of it compared to these freighters. Even a Gemini, who is a combat fighter, you're probably gonna get more use out of it, so we're gonna put it into a high C. Then we have a Phantom, which is a curious ship because it's got no combat role, but it's a phase ship. It's got like advanced ground support thing, so this is useful if you go raiding. But let's be real, it's such a rare ship. It's not that you see it often. Sometimes the Tritech is gonna have it, so you're probably, let's say if you're playing as a pirate, which is where this would be useful, you're probably not really gonna see this much and not gonna get much use out of it. So I feel like it's just too costly to be really worth carrying around. And as far as utility ship go, It's probably the last on the line out here. It's not an F tier ship though, so let's put it down in the low C. And then another utility ship, we got the salvage rig. Basically, if you're gonna be salvaging anything, you'll probably want this one. It's got a salvage gantry, so it's a destroyer size, so you get a bit more out of it than out of frigates, a bit better percentage of loot you can acquire. You probably always want 1 or 2 of these in your fleet if you're salvaging things, but it's again one of those that you buy early on or you salvage early on and then you forget that you have it in your ship. It's just there, it just flies around. This one doesn't have any weapons or anything like that, so you will never see it in combat. And as far as utility ships go, I feel like it's probably the most useful out of all of them when it comes to destroyer size. So we're gonna put it into high C tier, but you can't really rank it up higher where it could compete with some of the combat ships. And then we go into Shrikes, which are also very staple early game destroyers that can be very useful in players' hands. They're cheap to deploy at only 8 DP, and of course we have the normal, and then we have the pirate version. These are very, very fast. They can dish out a lot of damage, but they will die if you look at them wrong. So to be honest, I kinda like fighting them because I know that they will overcommit and then they will die. But I also like having them on my side early on because I know they'll be able to deal a lot of damage, and you know what, flying one is actually pretty decent. So early game, very useful, can barely survive into mid game. Not even late game, mid game. That's its only issue because it's just too squishy. And then the pirate version's got less ordnance points as well, so you can't even put that many weapons on it. It's really tough thinking about this because it's such a good early game ship, but then into mid and late games doesn't survive. So I think we're gonna put it out here in the B tier, maybe somewhere in the middle, something like this. I don't know, it really depends if you prefer destroyer carriers, if you prefer destroyers. But yeah, it's somewhere in the middle in B. I would love to put it higher, I just don't feel like they survive for too long. And well, speaking of things that die, we got 2 Sunders next, the basic one and then the Lion Guard. This is basically the definition of a glass cannon ship. It's got a large energy mount on it, so let's say you put an auto pulse laser on, it can dish out a lot of damage, but it's kind of short range, and as I said, glass cannon, things are gonna shoot at it, it's gonna die. Probably not the best idea. In players' hands, that can be good because you can fly it and you can do really well and you're gonna get a lot of use out of it. In AS hands, it's gonna die if you give it short range. In AS hands then, it might be better if you put, let's say, like a hill or something on it, so it's got a long range and you can just laser things from very far away. Maybe even put a cautious officer on it. I don't know. I never use cautious officers, so I don't know if this would work as maybe like a ship of the line in that regard. Potentially, it is 11 deployment points, so it's not the cheapest, but it's also not the most expensive. I feel like, for me, it's just too squishy, right? I prefer not to use them in my fleet. I like to see them in the opposing fleet because I know they'll be easy to kill, even though they can dish out a lot of damage. Lion's Guard 1 is just slightly worse. It's got less ordnance points and slightly worse flux dissipation because they reworked it, of course. That's what Andrade does. In any case, I feel like it's too glass cannony to use in a player's fleet for too long. So I feel like we're gonna put it out here into high B, but not higher than that. Then we have a Tarsus. It's a civilian freighter. It carries less than a Buffalo, so it's worse than that. If you put it into combat ever, it's just gonna die. To be honest, if you have to pick, just pick a Buffalo. It's gonna give you more. So we're gonna put Tarsus into F tier. And then last but not the least, we have another utility ship, which is a Valkyr. Valkyr, it's got the ground support like Phantom, but it's slightly worse ground support. But then again, it's way more widely available, so you'll actually be able to find them and use them. Let's say if you're a pirate and you're raiding, it's gonna be really easy to get your hands on this one. And I feel like as a utility, even though the Phantom would provide more support, If you want to carry some troops around, I feel like this one is still slightly better. So we're gonna put it up here into C, just above the Phantom. And here's my ranking. Let me know what you think about it. Let me know what you would put into S tier, what you would put into F tier. Where do you disagree with me? And otherwise, thank you for watching. There's gonna be more Starsector stuff linked over there, so watch it. Until on Monday, a new series comes, so you totally should watch this. Just click that subscribe button there and you'll be notified.